All right, let's go back in time. Way back. We're talking almost 100 million years ago to a world where two absolute titans didn't just follow the rules of being an apex predator, they completely rewrote the playbook. This is a showdown, folks, between two of the largest, most terrifying carnivores to ever walk the earth. Well, forever, T-Rex has worn the crown, right? I mean, we all know the name, it's the king. But what if I told you the king had rivals? Serious rivals. Two other giants, each with a totally legitimate claim to that throne. So that's what we're diving into today. We're asking the big question: who was the true king of the dinosaurs?
So let's meet our contenders. In one corner, you've got Giganotosaurus, the giant southern lizard, a pure land-based terror from South America. And in the other corner, Spinosaurus, the spine lizard, a truly mysterious semi-aquatic monster that ruled the river systems of North Africa. You've got two unbelievable giants, two different continents, but only one crown.
All right, here is how we're going to tackle this. First up, we'll dive into their wild discovery stories. Then we'll get to the tail of the tape, comparing them head to head. After that, we'll explore the worlds they dominated. And finally, we'll look at the biggest scientific questions that are still out there. So our story actually starts not millions of years ago, but right here in the 20th century. It begins with the people who brought these monsters back from the dead. And you're about to see their discovery stories could not be more different. One is a story of just pure dumb luck, while the other is a tale of tragedy and some incredible scientific detective work that took a whole century to unfold. Okay, first up, Giganotosaurus, and its discovery story is, well, it's the kind of thing fossil hunters literally dream about. Picture this. It's 1993, and an amateur fossil hunter, a guy named Ruben Carolini, is just cruising around in his dune buggy in Patagonia. And what does he see? A massive leg bone just sticking out of the ground. That's it. Paleontologists get the call, and by 1995, boom, the world meets Giganotosaurus carolini, a brand new giant named after the lucky guy who found it. Just a straightforward, explosive entrance. The story of Spinosaurus, though, man, it's a completely different beast. It's basically a ghost story. So it was first discovered way back in 1912 by a paleontologist named Ernst Stromer. The original, absolutely priceless fossils were in a museum in Munich. But then, tragically, in 1944, a World War II bombing raid completely destroyed them. Gone. For decades, Spinosaurus was just a lost legend, a ghost known only from Stromer's old drawings. It took until the 2000s for new bones to start showing up, and for paleontologist Nazar Ibrahim and his team to painstakingly track them all down and piece together this creature that was honestly far, far stranger than anyone could have ever imagined. So there you have it. One found by pure chance, the other pieced together from a century-old ghost story. Now, for the first time in nearly 100 million years, let's put them side by side. It is time for the tale of the tape. Let's start with Giganotosaurus. This thing was immense. We're talking up to about 13 meters or 43 feet from its nose to the tip of its tail. To put that in perspective, that is longer than a school bus. Just an absolute giant, easily one of the biggest land carnivores we've ever found. But then you have Spinosaurus, and the latest estimates put it at a staggering 15 meters or 50 feet long. Yeah, you heard that right. Spinosaurus was even longer. It officially holds the title for the longest meat-eating dinosaur ever discovered. Period. But length is really only part of the story. When you look closer, you realize you're looking at two completely different types of predator. Giganotosaurus had this massive, deep skull, just built for delivering powerful bites with dozens of razor-sharp, blade-like teeth. Spinosaurus, on the other hand, had this long, slender, crocodile-like snout, and it was filled with conical teeth, perfect for one thing: grasping, slippery prey. So yeah, they were both huge, but they were armed for two totally different ways of life. And these different body plans, well, they point to two very, very different worlds. And let's be super clear here. These two would have never, ever met. They were separated not just by entire continents, but by millions of years. Each one ruled its own kingdom, completely unchallenged. Giganotosaurus. This was the top dog, the apex predator of the ancient wetlands of what is now Argentina. And it stalked a world filled with some of the largest animals of all time. We're talking about those colossal, long-necked sauropods. This was a literal land of giants, and Giganotosaurus was built specifically to hunt them. So how in the world do you hunt something that massive? Well, not with a bone-crushing bite like a T-Rex. No, Giganotosaurus was, well, more subtle and maybe even more terrifying. It used what paleontologists call a slice and dice technique. Its teeth were like a mouthful of steak knives, right? They weren't designed to crush bone. They were designed to inflict these deep, gruesome, bleeding wounds, letting its huge prey just weaken from blood loss and shock. It was a brutal, efficient land shark. Okay, now let's jump over to North Africa, and the picture just completely changes. Spinosaurus lived in this vast, ancient river system that once flowed right through modern-day Morocco. And this place was teeming with giant fish, sawfish, even sharks. Its entire body was basically a specialized toolkit designed for one thing: hunting in the water. And the evidence for this aquatic life? I mean, it is written all over its skeleton. It had super dense bones, kind of like a penguin's, which would have helped it control its buoyancy in the water. It had these short, powerful hind legs with flat feet, perfect for paddling. Its nostrils were way up high on its skull, so it could breathe even when it was mostly underwater. And then the final, incredible piece of the puzzle, a huge, paddle-shaped tail, the perfect engine for propelling that massive body through the water. This thing was a true river dragon. But you know, for as much as we figured out, these dinosaurs still hold some really deep mysteries. See, paleontology isn't just about the facts we know, it's about the big questions we're still trying to answer. And Spinosaurus? Oh man, Spinosaurus is just full of them. And probably the biggest question of all is just how aquatic was this thing really? Was it more of a shoreline predator, waiting in the shallows and snatching fish from the bank? Or was it something else entirely? Right now, there are kind of two main camps on this. You've got the wading model, which pictures it like a giant heron stalking the shoreline. But then there's the pursuit predator model, and this one gained huge momentum after they found that paddle tail, which argues it was a true aquatic hunter, actively chasing down prey in the water. And honestly, the science seems to be leaning more and more towards it being an active swimmer, a true dinosaurian crocodile. This quote from researcher Matteo Fabri really just sums it all up perfectly. He said, "This animal is simply weird. We have nothing alive today that could be considered remotely similar. Spinosaurus is so unique, so bizarre, we have nothing to compare it to. It was like an evolutionary experiment, unlike anything else, which is what makes it both so fascinating and so incredibly hard to understand." And of course, we can't talk about Spinosaurus without talking about that sail, its most iconic feature, right? That enormous thing on its back. What on earth was it for? Well, the honest truth is, nobody knows for sure, but we have some really compelling theories. Now, while nobody can be 100% sure, the leading theory, the one a lot of scientists are leaning towards, is that it was for display. Think of it like a giant billboard on its back, used to communicate with other Spinosaurus, a structure that would still be visible even when most of its body was underwater. I mean, other ideas have been thrown around, like storing fat or maybe regulating its temperature, but the idea of a giant biological billboard, that seems to be the one that makes the most sense. So, after all of that, we have to come back to where we started. Giganotosaurus, the land shark, versus Spinosaurus, the river dragon. Who wins? Who is the true king? And the answer, I think, reveals something really incredible about how evolution works. There is no single king. There can't be. Instead, what you have are different champions, each one perfectly adapted to rule a completely different world. Giganotosaurus was the undisputed king of its land, and Spinosaurus was the absolute master of its rivers. Asking who would win is kind of like asking if a lion could beat a great white shark. I mean, the fight would never happen, because they had both already won their own wars. And all of this leaves us with one final, kind of tantalizing thought. Both of these unbelievable animals were discovered really pretty recently in the grand scheme of things. It just makes you wonder, what other giants, what other evolutionary marvels are still buried right now, deep beneath our feet, just waiting to be found?